Packers fans, stay up to date on all of your Packers news this season via our newsletter. You can sign up for the packersnews.com and more Journal Sentinel newsletters by clicking on the link in the brief field of this video. Packers fans, welcome into the Green 19 podcast from JS Online and packersnews.com. I'm Kassidy Hill, joined as always by Tom Silverstein and Ryan Wood here from Lambeau Field, where the Packers have gotten their first win in 6 weeks, guys. There was a bye week thrown in there, but it has been 6 weeks on the Advent calendar. It's the holiday season. Can I call it the Advent calendar?
Oh, is that the thing where you open up the little doors or something like that?
That's adjacent.
I don't
thinking
know.
adjacent.
I'm seeing like Advent calendar everywhere, so it's in my brain. They haven't gotten a win in 6 weeks on the calendar. Finally get one on Sunday, a 20-3 win versus the Los Angeles Rams. A lot of caveats to take into account. The Rams came into today a 3-5 team, which is what the Packers now are. They were playing without their starting quarterback. And a defense that just features one of the best defensive linemen in the game, but not too much else around it. So a lot of...
They're not bad. I don't think their defense is bad.
Donald and Witherspoon, I feel like, are their anchors.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense entered today within a quarter point and 6 yards per game of what the Packers were allowing up. So they're almost identical, right down to Aaron Donald and Kenny Clark have been almost identical this year. They're almost identical to what the Packers defense is. They're not good, but they're not bad. They're a very average defense.
That makes sense because we've kind of said that about the Packers defense. They're not bad, All of that being said, it kind of makes sense as to why Matt LaFleur called this Mirror Week. He called it Mirror Week for two reasons. One, he said we're playing a team that is a lot like us on offense, on defense, on scheme. He said this is a team that we can know well because we know ourselves well. So he told his team all week, like, everything you're going to face on Sunday, you faced in camp, in OTAs, in practice. So you know what you're facing. Don't freak out. He also called it Mirror Week because he said this is a week where we're going to have to decide who we want to be. We're going to have to look in the mirror and say, am I doing my part? Am I satisfied with what I'm seeing when I look at what I'm doing? So all of that was taken into account for the players. And as we said, they come out with a 20-3 win. We're going to break down a lot of different aspects of it, but Spoon, I'll just start with you. Your kind of overarching takeaway from this game. I know you love this question.
All that mirror stuff is what a bunch of crap that is. What a bunch of hooey. Like, it's just something they had to come up with during the week. He's got to come up with some kind of speech. I mean, there is a little bit of, what they do, but so I thought they finally, picked on a team that was worse than they were. They played a bunch of teams that were worse than they were, and they haven't beat them. And this time they beat them. And to me, it was significant in only one way, and that is that you started to see some of the younger players start to emerge a little bit. It doesn't mean it, it's, the caveat is it was the Rams and it was Matthew Stafford, but there were guys on offense who did it too. So it's not like it was just defensive guys who kind of started to show a little bit. But this is what they need to be a competitive team. If they're going to be, and that's what they should be shooting for, is to be competitive in the next
9.
Yeah, or at least the next 4 games. I mean, they're playing 4 good teams. Be freaking competitive in those games, and they need those guys to play to do that.
Was that, Ryan, do you agree that was at least what it seemed like is the biggest difference, is that they at least looked like they weren't there were some moments where they shot themselves in the foot, took 1 step forward and then 2 back. But for the most part, they were moving in a forward direction.
I thought you could see some confidence growing as the game progressed, and they realized, this isn't actually all going to hell, which it's been like every game over the last month plus that every game has gone to hell right off the bat. They actually had a first half touchdown today. It snapped a drought of 180 first half minutes. It's been 7 weeks since they had a first half touchdown. They finally got in the end zone. That certainly didn't hurt. Here's why it wasn't Mirror Week. Because one of these teams had its starting quarterback. And that's a big caveat in this game. But with that said, the Packers defense did to an offense with a backup quarterback what an NFL defense is supposed to do to an offense with a backup quarterback. It put its foot on its throat, and it never let it up for air. That's exactly what it should look like, and they put it out there. I think the most significant thing about this was that this, if you look at the calendar, you look at the schedule, this was their last chance to really, last real solid, good chance to win a game, maybe in some time, because at Pittsburgh next week, a team that's not great, but Mike Tomlin knows how to win games, and it's on the road against a very good defense. And then you got Justin Herbert. Then you got the Detroit Lions on the road on Thanksgiving. And then you got Patrick Mahomes. If they didn't win today, it could have been a very long time till they win again. And that Spoon's been making this point for a while now. That could have gotten crushing. So they really needed to seize the chance that they had today, and they did.
Let's start with defense. We normally start with offense and Jordan Love, but whatever. I make the rules here. We're starting with defense. Backup quarterback, as we said, and they did what you should do to a backup quarterback who does not play much. But it's a backup quarterback that still was throwing to two pretty solid receivers. And not even solid, but two good receivers, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. We saw Carrington Valentine, the rookie, draw the Nacua assignment a lot, so we'll get to that. But let's start with Cooper Kupp. He had 7 targets, and he ended with 2 catches for 48 yards, I want to say it is. 34 of those came off that long shot down the seam off the free play. But Jaire Alexander kind of kept him locked up because he drew that assignment a decent bit. Kind of kept him locked up. Again, you've got to have a quarterback that can get him the ball because some of those were just overthrows as well. But one of the better games we've seen Jaire Alexander play this year. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and it was especially good in zone coverage. He played the one where he tipped it up for a touchdown. That's classic cover 2 defense where, you make it look like you're
You mean the interception?
The interception. What did I say? Fumble?
Touchdown.
Oh, touchdown. It's classic where you act like you're going to bite up on the flat route, and then you drop back, and take the crosser, the deep crosser, and that was Pro Bowl type play. He looked like he was closing on the ball. He got his hands on a bunch of ball. He looked like he was healthy.
Part of me wonders too, because I like to watch when the defense is on the field, like who he's drawing, and make a note of that because it seems pertinent a lot of times. And I saw him today talking a lot more before the snap, kind of getting guys in position. Not that he ever didn't do that, but it seemed to be more so today. And even doing that on the sideline, like before they were going in the huddle, after they came off. Part of me wonders, and tell me if I'm making too much of this, if like with Rasul Douglas gone, that kind of maybe lit a fire under Alexander to be like, okay, I'm going to have to be the voice in the secondary and remind everybody that I'm a Pro Bowl corner and I can be the leader of this secondary.
It should be said, too, though, that Jaire Alexander did say after the game, this is the best his back has felt in a very long time. This entire week, it is the best. It's the healthiest his back has felt. So I don't know how close it is to 100%, but it looked like his back felt a lot better today, his ability to move. He was all over the field. 2 defended passes and tied the team lead for 7 tackles. That's what they needed from him, especially with Rasul Douglas no longer here.
Yeah, that's how you.
I agree with you. I think Jaire Alexander needs to be the center of attention, and he likes to be the center of attention, and may not like it when it's a crowd of reporters around him, but when it's on the field, he wants all the spotlight on him, and I think he kind of grooved on that, and. I think it was a combination. I think feeling healthy was a huge deal. But I also think that he's like, okay, this is my secondary now. You know, it was kind of Rasul Douglas's secondary. It was not Jaire Alexander's secondary. And with Savage out,
Rudy Ford was out today.
yeah, Rudy Ford was out. I mean, he was king of the hill today. So they need him to be like that every week.
You know, I don't want to look too far into this, so tell me what you think, but I can't help but notice that his media sessions have been taken more serious since the trade, too, both during the week and then after. He's talked about his leadership style in a way that I can't remember him ever saying. And
I didn't talk to him after the game, so I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, that's a fair
my
point.
impression.
Yeah, because I think you were standing there, Ryan. I even asked him today. I think it was the last question. Like, this is a secondary that could have easily folded in on itself today and had the excuse to do so. You lose a starter. You don't have Savage. Rudy wasn't playing today. What kept you focused? Like, what kept this whole secondary focused? And he said 2-3. He said, I came in this week and made sure, like, you know, I'm going to hold y'all accountable. You're going to hold me accountable, and we're going to get through this. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Like, he kind of knows that this is his secondary to take a hold of now. And I think I agree with your point, too, Spoon, about he needs to kind of be king of the hill, which, if you think about it, is the character trait of every great corner.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Every great corner needs a little cockiness to him.
Oh, my gosh,
to be the center of attention.
But two corners together can be, you know, who are, you know, like this can be dominating. I mean, the Packers had Al Harris and Charles Woodson, and they were like veteran guys who saw everything the same way, and they were really good together. A lot of times, and this is what the weird part about Jaire Alexander and Rasul Douglas, a lot of times it's one guy who's really good, but he's not paid as much as the other guy, you know, and he thinks he should be paid more, and he doesn't say anything, but there's a little jealousy there. But Jaire Alexander had no reason to be jealous of Rasul Douglas's contract, and I don't think Douglas was, I didn't get the sense that he was jealous of Jaire's, but I also do feel like Rasul Douglas felt like this was his secondary, that he was the guy in charge.
It was always a weird dynamic from the timing element of it, too, because the Packers would probably never have had Rasul Douglas if Jaire Alexander hadn't gotten hurt. He tears his shoulder week 4
That's a good point.
of the 2021 season, tackling Najee Harris against Pittsburgh when they were here at Lambeau Field. And it was because of that the Packers needed to go and add depth to the secondary. And what they did to do that was they plucked Rasul Douglas off the Arizona Cardinals practice squad, and then he balled out. He had an incredible year, and that entire rest of the season, they don't have Jaire Alexander until 8 snaps to go to play in the NFC divisional game. So as Rasul Douglas is arriving, as he's emerging, solidifying himself again in the NFL, Jaire Alexander's not a part of the team on the field, and it always seemed it always kind of seemed a little disjointed from being able to grow together because they didn't really get a chance to grow together.
Rasul Douglas was walking around with an iPhone 8 too, so I think you're right. He didn't care about Jaire Alexander's contract. he was happy with what he had. All of that to say, Jaire Alexander, one of his best games of the season today. On the opposite side, we saw Carrington Valentine, who has been picked on by quarterbacks this year when he's had to come in. We saw him in that Denver game across from Douglas when Alexander was out, and he gave up, I want to say, 6 catches on 7 targets for like 88 yards or something like that. And so he's been picked on. Today, he, of course, got targeted again because he was drawing the Puka Nacua assignment, and he's a rookie corner, kind of making only his second start. He's going to get picked on. And I don't know what he gave up, but I know he ended with 3 pass breakups. And that's just because that what they qualify as a pass defended. I think your hand has to get on the ball. He led to more incompletions than just those 3 as well. There was one play in particular, Spoon, you and I were kind of talking about, where it was an overthrow out of bounds, but the receiver was not in a bad spot, and Valentine just used the sideline to kind of be a second defender and pushed him out against it. The receiver didn't have a chance to come back for that ball. That's just a smart play from a 7th-round rookie.
I think he was far more aggressive than he was against Denver. He was so afraid of getting beat deep by Cortland Sutton. And that's the irony of it, is he doesn't have to worry about getting beat deep. I mean, he's a decent, he's a good man cover guy, but he's also a good zone guy because he's so fast to the ball. And he also broke on some passes where you're like, wow, he got in there and he got his hands in there. He's going to still take his lumps through the year, when they get to Mahomes and Herbert, they're going to look for weaknesses in his game and they're going to exploit it. But you like a guy who at least is aggressive. And I thought he was really passive against Denver, and today he was really, Sunday night he was really.
A lot of cornerbacks take their lumps against Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. Next week's Kenny Pickett. I think that's going to be really interesting because the caveat to this game is obviously Brett Rippin. Thank you. That's the caveat. But, and we talked about it during the week, one of the things I was fascinated to see is how much does two elite receivers in Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, how much does that aid a quarterback that might be struggling? Not much, because Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp had 5 catches on 14 targets for 80 yards and no touchdown. Puka Nacua has had 4 games this season where his stat line was better than that, and Cooper Kupp has had 2. And Cooper Kupp's season didn't start till early October because of IR. So that's obviously a factor. With that said, one of those forced incompletions that wasn't a PBU was Carrington Valentine against Puka Nacua, and afterwards he's standing over Puka Nacua and wagging his finger at him, like the Kimbe style. The swagger that he played with, it's one game against a backup quarterback, but this is one of the things that they want to do. Brian Gutekunst mentioned it after trading Rasul Douglas, was developmental snaps. These are the snaps now that Carrington Valentine's going to get the rest of the way if he stays healthy. And I want to see more of Carrington Valentine because the way he played today, Jaire Alexander said top-tier corner play, and that's for one day. That was the type of play that Carrington Valentine had, and now can he extend that? Can he do that each week or not? Where does it go from here? No one knows.
Let's talk about the other 7th-round rookie that started today, Anthony Johnson Jr. He only moved from corner to safety his senior year at Iowa State. This is only his 2nd year playing safety. Side note, God, can you imagine if he still played corner and then something happened and they elevated the Anthony Johnson that's a corner on the practice squad as well? And then it was Anthony Johnson and Anthony Johnson Jr. both playing. Johnson and Johnson, that's right. But Anthony Johnson Jr. was at safety today because Rudy Ford was inactive. Not a ton thrown his way, but when it was, he seemed to kind of stand in there and hold his own. He came away with an interception that came off of a Jaire Alexander tip, which, I know that was a play more thanks to Alexander, but you still got to be in the right place. Spoon, I know you kind of focused on rookies. What was your initial impression of AJJ, as they like to call him?
I like him the way I like Dontavian Wicks. Like, you can tell he's a smart player. You don't see him really out of position a lot. He doesn't, the times he's been in dime, which is the only time we've really seen him play in the past couple weeks.
He had 8 snaps on defense before today.
Is that all it was?
That's all it was.
Wow. I just think today, looking at him, I never got the sense he was in a bad place. And that's really common for rookie safeties. I think, I don't think he's going to replace Rudy Ford. And Jonathan Owens is playing fairly well. I mean, he's doing what he's good at, which is being a good box safety. And then Anthony Johnson's back. But I think that's a guy they got to keep playing, just like they have to keep playing Valentine. And they got to find out about him.
I'm glad you mentioned him, never being really in the wrong spot. He mentioned on Friday about, taking the reps kind of and I'm trying to remember the exact word he used, because he did not use the phrase mental reps, which gets almost overused a lot of times. He's like, well, I'm just taking my mental reps. Just, when guys are like, I'm just taking my mental reps, just taking the mental reps. And I'm like, okay, does that mean you're just sitting there, like, paying attention when they're talking? But the way he worded it, I remember it standing out, because it was like he was saying, like, I remember what he said. He said, I walk through the plays on the sideline during the game. Like, whatever the call is, he was like, I try to walk through it on the sideline so that I'm doing exactly what, Ford and Owens are doing out on the field, wherever he would be playing in that particular time. And so I was like, that seems like it's taking mental reps and taking it a step farther. And then he said today, he's like, all of that paid off today, because I was never worried. I was never confused. And, that's, like you said, a smart player.
As much as playing a backup quarterback did matter, because there's no question that a Mahomes or Herbert or Matthew Stafford would have had more success than the God, who they play?
The Rams.
I
And the
called
Rams
them
played
I
today?
called them the Lions in the blog
I almost said the
today.
Bills. I'm like, that's not right. Well, we'll cut that out. As than the Rams had today. There was not a lot of opportunities to get big plays deep. This was a secondary with two backups, Jonathan Owens for Darnell Savage, Anthony Johnson Jr. for Rudy Ford, that were buttoned up. There was the communication was on point, and there wasn't a lot of busted coverages, really any busted coverages. They didn't give a lot of opportunities for a backup quarterback to get easy chunk plays, and that's saying something, because goodness.
We've seen that before.
Right? How many times over the past couple of years? I mean, over and over, week after week. It didn't happen today. And so whether, if they play this buttoned up against a better quarterback, there should still be some modicum of success and results, because this is how you play the back end of your defense. You make the offense actually work for it.
Let me ask you all a question, because, and this is no disrespect to Jonathan Owens and Anthony Johnson Jr., I don't think they were necessarily the difference maker. So is it a better game plan? Was it a different approach to the scheme? Was it the pass rush, just kind of forcing Rippon into some, bad situations? Like, what was the difference then?
I think the difference was when early on, Joe Barry's always so reluctant to do this, but to play 8 men in the box and play his single safety. Mm-hmm. But Jonathan Owens, that's what he does, And then once Joe Barry started doing that, I thought that they started stopping the run a little bit better, and then, forcing Rippon to throw it. I mean, that's what you should be doing, right? Mm-hmm. Just loading up on the run and daring Rippon. I understand he had 2 rookies back there, but I'm still going to say, dare Rippon to throw.
You know what Jonathan Owens told me after the game? I was asking him about, how tight their coverage was against Nakua and Kupp, and he said, I know you didn't mention this, but we stopped the run too. We made them one-dimensional. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. They did do that, and that's what you need to do against especially a backup quarterback, is to take something away, and that's why it was so suffocating, because they could only go one way, and that way was the way that the Packers wanted the Rams to try to beat them.
This is my biggest pet peeve with Joe Barry, is he's going to come out and he's going to play his defense, right, until they start getting gashed, and then he's going to make some kind of change. And if he'd have just come out and, just played 8 men up in the box the whole time in the beginning and just shut that run down, because they did run the ball a little bit in the beginning, and then the Packers shut it down. It's like, take the fight to the opposition instead of waiting to take the fight when they take the fight to you.
So next week, a lot of soft coverage.
It seemed like exactly. It seemed like too, because Alexander was on the line a lot more today than he has been. Was that just part of
You mean up playing press?
Yeah.
I didn't notice. I wasn't paying attention, so I'm not sure what that was about. Your single safety, you're often up on the receiver, but sometimes they transition to zone in that. They'll play bump in their zone. So I'm not really sure, but I am interested in looking at rewatching it and see how much they played 8-man.
A big factor in shutting down that run today, too, was Isaiah McDuffie. I feel like this is a guy we hardly ever talk about, but because of injuries and just how the timeline of injuries have fallen to both Devondre Campbell and now Quay Walker this year, Isaiah McDuffie's been asked to play a lot. And, a lot of times with a backup linebacker, you're like, okay, just don't be a liability. I feel like he's gone beyond not a liability to being a pretty legit playmaker.
I think so. I think, he's not Quay Walker, and he's not as good in coverage as Devondre Campbell, but, man, he brings it. He brings it every single down, and I think he's gotten more comfortable with playing, too. He seems much more confident and flying around. So
You know what the maddening part to all this has got to be is why did it take till not having Rasul Douglas to play this way? From a not just a schematic standpoint, but an aggressiveness standpoint, a stylistic standpoint. Why? Can you imagine if they would have played this type of attitude and it wasn't Rasul Douglas? Not like, oh, Rasul Douglas is gone. He was the problem. No, he was not. But can you imagine if they would have played with two corners like Douglas and Alexander played this way for the past couple seasons? I don't know.
And think about it, going into Pittsburgh. Why not just come up with a super aggressive game plan against Kenny Pickett? Okay, so they beat you a couple times deep, then you back off. But what do you got to lose?
Yep.
He's
Kenny Pickett.
I'm sure Barry's worried if they keep losing, he's going to lose his job. But, if
Clearly what you're doing isn't working either.
Right. But if you're like one of these defenses that relies a lot on interceptions, you start getting some picks, and you got some guys who can blitz. Figure something out.
Very fair point. And to go back to the McDuffie point, just to put a bow on that, you're right. Like he's not going to have the sideline to sideline speed that Quay Walker has. He's not near as big as Devondre Campbell. So that's why those are your two starters. But as a backup, when you've got an injured guy, then it's nice to know. I think if you're the Packers, that you can plug someone like that in there.
I think they should consider on some downs playing all three of those guys. Like take a safety out and say, okay, you're gonna split. In a base situation when they got two receivers or two tight ends, bring three inside linebackers on and dare them to try to run against it.
Could you take like Nixon out and play 4-3?
Or you could rush Quay Walker off the edge in that look too. Let you be a lot more creative with Quay Walker.
Bulk him up and then be a hybrid.
Or you take out a safety. You take out Jonathan Owens and say, okay, we're replacing him with Isaiah McDuffie, who's even better than Jonathan Owens in stopping the run. I don't know if it will work, but you'd like to see the guy come up with something kind of special. And when we get to offense, we can talk about that too, because I have some things to say about LaFleur as well.
So would you put, since we're just dreaming here, would you put, I'm trying to think of what each of their skills would be. Would you put, like, Campbell at Mike, Quay at Sam, McDuffie at Will?
I don't know, but I've always thought you put your best players on the field and find a way to make it work. I'm going to go back, as I always do, because I'm old, but, Fritz Schirmer came here and he developed this big nickel package because he had some really good athletic linebackers, and he was like, instead of a fifth guy, a corner, I'm going to use a safety or a linebacker, and you play to your talent. And sometimes I think he's got three pretty good inside linebackers there. Figure out a way to use them.
Let's switch to offense. That's a good transition.
Gladly.
What do you have to say about? Take the soapbox, Spoon. It's yours.
Well, how long does it take to come away with a play that they got on the touchdown for Luke Musgrave?
Ooh, I want to talk about that play.
Not to mention that they admitted they stole it from someone else, which I keep hearing that more and more where he's saying, well, we borrow from other people in the league. You might want to come up with some of your own plays once in a while, too.
Aaron Jones gave Matt LaFleur credit. He said he thought it was a LaFleur play. And then I went back and listened to LaFleur, and he was like, I know the 49ers did it a couple of years ago against Kittle. I was like, your players are in there giving you credit. You might as well have taken it.
Yeah. Where has that been? I got to look and see again, but I don't know how they got Musgrave open on that deep crosser, but that was a nice play.
The one down the left sideline?
Yeah, the one that was similar. It looked like the Bears play almost.
I asked him if it was the same play, and he said, no, it wasn't. I said, oh, it just looked like because you fell on both.
Yeah. Well, Love didn't fumble the snap on this one, But they gotta be more creative, and I know you got a bunch of young guys there, but I don't know. That offense still looks just bad to me, and I'm starting to question Jordan Love more. How many times can you underthrow a guy who's wide open running down the sideline? Mm-hmm. What is that? How does that keep happening? I'm not really sure. Maybe that's something he'll clean up. I'm sure it's something you can, but I want to see him make some plays. Out of the pocket. When Aaron Donald was chasing him from behind, figure out a way to get by that guy and make some kind of play into the end zone. I was watching the Cowboys-Eagles game right after this, and Dak Prescott is like, he's moving around the pocket, he's buying his receivers time, and maybe Jordan Love can't do that. Maybe he's just not that athletic as we thought he was. But I don't see him. I see him sometimes holding it too long, sometimes not moving around the pocket enough. Just something missing there right now.
Let me ask the inevitable question. Mm-hmm. How much of that is because Dak Prescott is in his 8th year?
Could be.
Like that?
Yeah, absolutely. That could be part of it. But I'm like, This is what you want to see from Jordan Love once in a while. A guy who can buy some time. And then when he does, he puts it on his guys. Mm-hmm. He puts that ball right where his guy can catch it. And that's where I think Jordan Love has to keep working on his accuracy.
Ryan, I can see you gearing up to say something.
No, you guys are good.
I didn't know if you had anything to add.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's talk about some of the rookies on offense as well, starting with Luke Musgrave. We saw him get open more today. How much of that was the defense? How much of that was maybe him starting to understand, angles and getting off the line at the right angle as well?
Yeah, I mean, they actually threw deep to Luke Musgrave today, so that's a change, and that doesn't hurt to have chunk plays. I do want to make a point on what Spoon was talking about with Love and the deep ball, actually, because I wrote about it after the game in the Quick Gamer. Jordan Love's not going to have a long career in this league if he can't do better on the downfield throws. It's not going to happen. I don't know if it will get better. It could. I don't have a crystal ball. But if he cannot hit those throws more consistently, he has Christian Watson running three steps behind a DB down the left sideline, and he throws it short by like 5 yards. He won't have a long NFL career if that doesn't get better, and much better, because that's a play, that's a throw that an NFL quarterback has to make with regularity, not just once or twice, with regularity. And right now, Jordan Love is, with regularity, missing those throws. That's not going to cut it as a career. So I think that there's no question that's got to improve.
And how often do you get to play with a guy like Christian Watson who can get 3 steps? How many times do you have a receiver who has 3 steps on anybody?
And Christian Watson actually did make an attempt to come back for that ball.
Yeah, he did.
It might have been feeble, but that's a tough ask as when you're sprinting behind the defense, full speed, to stop and literally come back for that. That's a lot to ask. And the catch he did make, the 37-yarder, He high-pointed that ball.
Yeah.
He went up and got it and got injured, obviously. What is it, a back, a chest, and evaluated for concussion. But he went up and got that one. I mean, he made some plays from getting separation down the left sideline that should have been a touchdown to the 37-yard catch. He made some plays today, but you can't. That's not going to work.
Does he need to assume that every ball's going to be underthrown now? Just run like crazy and then come back for it? Almost like a back shoulder? Because how many he is? Maybe I've seen him once. Well, what was it? Whatever the last game here was, I can't even remember. Didn't he? There was one where he hit Watson in the hands. They were going deep, and I think Watson just missed it. I'm trying to remember which game that was.
Like the game last week, or the week 3.
No, I think it was. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, but other than that, there's just not been many times that he's been even close.
Mm-hmm.
And
with regularity,
yeah.
He's consistently missing those. That's a problem.
I don't know if it's his aiming point. Is he forgetting to lead him, or is he siding arming? He has a tendency to kind of side arm. He's got a weird kind of motion in that way, and maybe he just can't crank it out there.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll get better or not because it is still early. But go back to last week, the interception he had last week. If you watch that tape, Jaden Reed is wide open behind the secondary, cutting wide open,
Right.
And he's looking for the ball toward the right sideline. And where does that ball end up? And I understand that on that play, the ball ended up hitting Jaden Reed's hands, and he needed to make a play for his quarterback there, kind of bail his quarterback out. But the ball takes him to the left sideline. He has to change directions,
Yep.
which is toward the safety, and slow down when he's running behind the secondary to the right sideline. If you throw it here in this window away from the safety, lead him, it's a touchdown. Every week we're seeing that, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
I agree.
So it's the getting in front of them, leading them, hitting them in stride. I hesitate to even say this because I want to watch the play before, whatever. I almost wonder on the play that Christian Watson got hurt on if he had let him a little bit more, if it would have kept that from happening.
Yeah, I think so. I think he could have let him a little bit more. I'm not sure how well Watson ran the route, but
Yeah.
it sure looked like it could have gone over his shoulder a little bit.
What's interesting to me, and I'm curious if you guys saw it the same way, but I noticed Christian Watson actually did slow down on that route.
Did he?
And then he had to go and get it, and he did. He had to go close. I don't know why. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. Like, okay, let's not outrun the ball here.
Yeah.
But he slowed down a little bit on that route, and then he made a hell of a play to go and get it.
There just doesn't seem to be the chemistry there between the two of them that there is with Dobbs. And
It's hard to have chemistry when you're a deep ball receiver with a quarterback that doesn't throw deep well. Like it's hard to be on the same page with that.
One thing that I noticed today, it just kind of popped in my head too, is, Watson's getting a lot of criticism because he's not making a lot of catches, and that's fair. But he does clear out a lot of action for some of those guys. When I think it was Dobbs or maybe it was Reed had a comeback, and it was because Watson took his guy and the safety deep that corner had to play off, and they were able to hit that comeback. So he does take that, but I'd like to see them use him on some of those comebacks and, the slant to Reed that he hit. I would have liked to seen Watson take that and see what he could do with it.
like
You know-
give him space.
The play that, as you're listing off kind of creative plays and Matt LaFleur, the play that came to my mind when I saw it today was the toss reverse to Jaden Reed. Here's a fast player, young player, who you just want to get the ball out in open space easy. Let him make a play. Picks up 21 yards. That's a good play. When's the last time we saw them do anything like that with Christian Watson? What did we see? What was that 8th touchdown in those 4 games last year? What was the 8th touchdown? 46-yard jet sweep pass that they just took at the line of scrimmage and went 46 yards.
Yeah.
I can't remember them doing that since then.
That's a Bears touchdown.
He's blazing 4.36 40. Just get him the ball whatever way you can do it. Just get him the ball. It doesn't have to be deep. Just get him the ball easy. Put him on a jet sweep. Do something simple to take advantage of that speed.
Yeah.
Don't we hear all the time? That's what sometimes a good quarterback just has to do: get your ball to the playmakers in space and let them make plays. Speaking of Christian Watson, Spoon, I want to ask you, as our resident Packers historian, whether you want to be or not. You've been here long enough. It's you. Because I tweeted out like his injuries, which is a chest injury, a back injury, being evaluated for a concussion. The concussion, I think, is for sure because he looked woozy coming off the field.
LaFleur said that he was not concussed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said in his press conference
Okay.
that he wasn't concussed.
Maybe he just took a hard hit because, like, when he stumbled, it didn't seem like it was anything with his knee. It
Yeah.
seemed like it was like
Was chest and
whoa,
back.
yeah.
Did, but I wonder if he, sometimes you get hit in the spine, or he fell on the ball, is what
Yeah.
they said.
All of that to say, somebody quote tweeted with a picture, an old picture of a newspaper clipping, and I'm just curious if this is really true. Colts at Packers. It's like a game pick. And it says, Packers quarterback Brett Favre, in parentheses, sprained foot, sore neck, twisted knee, hyperextended elbow, bruised ribs, bruised quadriceps, bruised thigh, swollen cheekbone, mangled throwing hands, is listed as probable.
That sounds on
Did
brand.
that really happen?
God, can I see it?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Mangled throwing hand. This has got to be fake. I don't know.
It looks like the pic is blurred out.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. He played with everything. Yeah.
Is probable.
He played in a game. Everybody who watched Brett Favre knows this game, but he had this massive swollen ankle. He played against the Vikings and he got hurt, and he didn't practice all week, and no way he was going to play. And then on Friday, he kind of said, "Hey, let me just try it, try it." And Holmgren, it might have been even Saturday in the walkthrough. That's what I think it was. And, all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, maybe." And so he comes out against the Bears, and I swear to God, he looked like Herman Munster. He had his ankle and foot taped like it couldn't move. And he threw for 5 touchdowns against the Bears. That's the kind of guy he was. I assume you're asking me, how does that compare to Christian Watson?
I really wasn't. I just thought that was hilarious, a hilarious clipping, and I was wondering if it was actually true.
Christian Watson is a tightly wound guy. He doesn't have a football body. He's 6'4". He looks like a small
runner.
forward, or a track
Yeah.
runner, yeah. And so he's going to have to keep working on his body to get more flexible. And I think he's just going to be susceptible to that until he, maybe he needs more body fat or something. I don't know. But he is really wound tight, you can tell.
Let's talk about a couple of the other guys. There were a couple of fumbles today, and a couple that could have been a fumble if they had not been ruled an incomplete pass. Aaron Jones said, that it could have had something to do with the rain. He said none of them came out with rain gloves on because there was no rain in the forecast.
That was interesting, yeah.
And that when you don't have rain gloves on and it starts to rain, the gloves get very slick. And he said after the fumbles, they had to change and put on rain gloves and obviously hold on to it a little bit tighter too. But with Dontavian Wicks in particular, he fumbled. It's hard to fumble when no one's touching you, but it looked like he was reaching for the first down marker, and it was a weird fumble. It was like off a bounce. And I think the defender just grabbed it because it was in front of him.
Yeah,
He wasn't trying to recover.
His
a
elbow
fumble.
came down, the ball came down, and it popped straight up.
Mm-hmm.
And because he wasn't touched, he's not down.
Mm-hmm. So, and then you see, the next drive and later on in the game, they come back to him and he makes a big play, especially, on a later drive. And so that's crucial. We don't necessarily even have to talk about that. That's just crucial for a young guy's confidence. But as we see more and more of Dontavian Wicks, and this is what I want to ask about, could we see him become a featured receiver in this offense? Which I'll be honest, at the beginning of the season with Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed, I wasn't paying much attention to Dontavian Wicks. But it feels like he's demanding snaps.
I think so. I think he's, as they say, he's very smart. He picks up on things. He picks up on details. Yeah, I absolutely. He's with the one guy who has some run after the catch in him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he can break a tackle. Absolutely, I see him getting more action.
Yeah. You putting your money on rising Wicks stock?
Well, that's another thing I wrote about in observations after the game is, he, even with the fumble, which was a bad play, untouched fumbles are never good. They're especially not good when it's the first play of the second half and you have a kickoff return almost out to midfield. It's not what you want. It's a bad play. But he just seems to have a wherewithal about him that he's a little more consistent than some of the other options they've got going right now. And that's what they need more than anything is consistency, a guy that can be there to make a play when they need to make a play. And you saw the Packers give him more snaps. I'm very curious to see what his snap count ended up being, but he played more today. And I think that you're going to see that continue as he continues to be consistent.
Well, as we're talking about him being a smart player, let me play devil's advocate here for a little bit. The fumble came because he knew where the marker was and he was trying to get the ball across it.
But the rule is don't reach out.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
it's become, ever since the Des Bryant play,
Yeah.
it's like don't reach the ball out because nothing good really happens on it. Especially when you're near the goal line, don't do it there because if it goes out of the end zone, it's a touchback. So just, what was it? Was it 1st and 10 on that?
Yeah, it was the first play of the,
No, it was the
third
second
quarter.
Oh, yeah, it was the first play.
It was the first play of the third quarter.
Yeah, that's right. And don't worry about it. You got 9, just get down. Now, some people on the blog, and I didn't watch it very closely, said the throw wasn't very good, that he had to twist and turn a little.
It was.
I don't know.
But the fumble
Okay.
was well after the catch.
Yeah.
Right, but would he have gotten the first down if the throw was on the money?
Maybe.
It wasn't a perfect throw.
I'm
but
asking, 'cause I don't know.
Just my read of it, it wasn't a perfect throw. It was not, it was a little off. So I thought a couple of those Jordan Love checkdowns, especially Aaron Jones today, were a lot crisper than they were last week. That's the example between the check down that hits the wrong shoulder, makes your guy have to turn. He ends up dropping it, should catch it, as Aaron Jones did last week, and just firing it to him. The throw could have been better, but that play was 80% on Dontavian Wicks.
I never remember thinking anything about the throw. Let's talk about Aaron Jones, though, too, for a second here. He finished with 24 touches, 99 yards, and a touchdown. Matt LaFleur said this week, we're ready to cut him loose. He told us afterwards, and Spoon and I were both there, that, he's still not quite at 100%, but this is the best he's felt since week 1. I think we saw the evidence of that today, and still so many mistakes to address, but gosh, how much smoother does this offense move when Aaron Jones is getting that many touches?
Yeah, I mean, he just opens so many things up because of his cutting ability. You don't have to block everything perfectly. You need to give him a little crease somewhere, and he's going to find it. Like there was that A.J. Dillon run, I think it was 3rd down, and it's set up. They needed like 2, and he went to the right. And if you looked at the replay, like the hole was to the left.
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't have that ability to really cut it back. And if it were Aaron Jones, he would have busted, and they would have got a 1st down. Because I think they ended up with a 4th and 1, and maybe they kicked the field goal. I can't remember exactly. But that's the example. He just gives you yards that aren't necessarily there.
The Packers' offensive game plan today is what the Packers' offensive game plan needs to be for the foreseeable future, and especially next week on the road against a good Steelers defense. Aaron Jones carried it 20 times. A.J. Dillon carried it 9 times. It's almost 30 carries between those two. And Aaron Jones did the unthinkable. He averaged fewer than 4 yards a carry. Aaron Jones never does that. But collectively, that all adds up to they made Jordan Love's life a hell of a lot easier than what it's been for a very long time. And you saw Jordan Love respond to that. It wasn't a perfect game from him, but he might have had his best completion percentage all season.
Oh, yeah.
20 of 28.
Yeah, he had a 116 passer rating, which is the first time in triple digits since week 2. The stat line looked really good because they gave him a manageable portion. They didn't give him the whole buffet and just say, here, gorge yourself. It was manageable what they gave him, and they really leaned on that running game in a way that they haven't been able to in some ways because Aaron Jones has been limited with that hamstring. But they did not hold back, and that I don't know why you go into any game for the foreseeable future until Jordan Love shows that he can make plays consistently, that he can hit throws downfield, that he can handle more. I don't know why you go any game for the foreseeable future with any other type of game plan other than what they had today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you, and this is the kind of knee-jerk reaction that I never have, but
Can't wait for this.
when they put Sean Ryan in the game,
Mm-hmm.
they ran the hell out of the ball. And if you go and look at it, he manhandled Aaron Donald twice, including the 3-yard touchdown on Aaron Jones. Take a look at it if you get a chance. I mean, he just stands him up and locks him up, and Aaron Donald can't really move. They got to explore that. They have to explore how to use him. Now, I don't know. Maybe he can't pass block worth nothing. You know, we didn't really get to see him pass block. They ran almost every time. They went like 5, 7, 2, 3, 5. They had a 12-yard run in there. They ran 6 straight times when he was in the game. And he's like guard that they don't have, you know, a power run blocking. Well, like I said, I don't know. Maybe he can't pass block. Maybe that's what's keeping him out. But shoot, then put him in as another tight end or something. You gotta. I think they got to explore that.
Because they already play a lot like of 12 personnel. They play a lot of 3 tight end sets.
Yeah.
They put him out there too.
Well,
on
get
the
one
end
of those
line.
tight
Leading
ends off the
fullback.
field.
Leading fullback. Here's your new Josiah DeGuara.
Yeah.
That's a good. So you're saying like pull Ben Sims off, put Sean Ryan in there.
Heck yeah, and then you know
That's like a jumbo.
I don't know. I'm just saying that they're going to look at that film, I think, and they're going to go, Sean Ryan was run blocking his butt off, and how do we take advantage of that?
Well, and you got to remind yourself too, because of the suspension, we didn't see Sean Ryan for a really long time. He's 3rd round pick.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you expect production.
Well, you got to remember he was a left tackle in college, and he's been making the transition to guard, and I think it's been a tough transition for him. Then he got suspended, so he missed some time. A lot of scouts really liked him a lot. I don't know, but they're gonna like I said, they're gonna really like what they saw on those running plays.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't know if I don't know. Can you bench John Runyon? Probably not. He's pretty good, decent pass blocker, but who knows?
Speaking of John Runyon, let's just take a quick moment here. The Packers tried a quarterback sneak 3 times on 4th and 1.
Oh yeah.
They technically got it all 3 times, but 2 of them were pulled back for a penalty, both for lined up in the neutral zone or offsides. I think the first one technically was. The first one was called on Nyman, but I really, Pete Doherty and I looked at it. I really think it was Runyon.
Game book says Runyon.
Okay, they changed it then? Okay. And then the second one was on Runyon as well. Ryan, I know you spoke to him after the game. What did he have to say about those calls?
This is one of those instances that is by definition an NFL rule. It's just almost never called, especially when if it's close.
Especially at home.
John Runyon lined up over the football, and he lined up over the point of the football that was closest to Josh Myers, so the back end. It's not like he was that far out, but he was over the football, and that's a neutral zone infraction because the football is the neutral zone. You're not supposed to be over the football, and he was. So by rule, that was a a penalty in both times. Now, he was not aware the first time that it was on him. For one, referee Cleet Blakeman said 73, Josh Nyman. John Runyon didn't hear that, but no one told him, like, that's on you, because the way that John Runyon lined up, he said, is the way that he's been lining up in short yardage his entire life. There's nothing different. This is how he lines up. This is how he was taught and learned how to play football, this is where you line up on short yardage. So he had no reason to think that it was him. He assumed, he thought it must have been a tight end out wide, some confusion out there. They're much more likely to have a pre-snap issue in short yardage than the guard who's right next to the football. So he didn't think it was him. That's why they didn't get it corrected, because to me, watching it, it was like, well, okay, a weird call once, but how do you let that happen again? That's how they didn't make a correction until the second time, and that's when John Runyon told me. Luke Buckus told him, yeah, that's on you, and you're over the football. So he said it's a really easy fix. He needs to back up literally an inch, like just back up an inch so you're not over that point of the ball. I think what's also interesting about this, though, is the Packers came into this game seeing on film that the Rams were very bad about stopping QB sneaks. So they wanted to keep their more elaborate short yardage plays in their pocket. So they didn't show them on film. They thought it'd be an easy play, and it should have been. But throughout the league, there's a crackdown on QB sneaks. There's been a lot of controversy over the tush push in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts. And that's kind of what John Runyon's take was this is part of this crackdown against QB sneaks, that they're going to be extra critical of all the fine details on where guys line up, because it's a very high success rate on quarterback sneaks in fourth and third and one in short throughout the league right now. So throughout the league, that'll be interesting to keep an eye on.
That's an interesting point that they're watching those plays that much closer. I haven't thought about that. So in Philadelphia, they call the tush push the brotherly shove because it's the city of brotherly love.
It is?
Yeah.
If they continue to do it here, what nickname do we give it?
You guys can handle that. I could care less.
Don't play the game.
No.
You're a writer. Use your words.
No.
Cut that cheese. I don't know. That's my best guess. I don't know. It's late. I've been here
about-
8 hours.
Roll off the tongue
How
as
about
much.
in the neutral zone?
INZ.
How about offsides penalty?
That's what it's looking like right now. Guys, we're going to go ahead and land this thing. One other mention. Best return Keyshawn Nixon has had this year.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the bathroom during the return. Was it short kick? Is this one of the factors of it getting colder? Was it great blocking? What was it that set up that 51-yard return?
I talked to him about it, and I mentioned, Bisaccia's been saying when it gets to November and December, he's been adamant that when it gets to November and December, you're going to get some opportunities. And he's like, yeah. And he said, when did I have my first big return last year? It was exactly this week.
Yeah.
It was like week 9 or 10 or something like that. So, yeah, he busted that one outside. That was on him. He just took it up the middle and then saw it was crowded and went to the left. So, yeah, now he's going to get some opportunities.
He's fast.
And that's so huge. I mean, it didn't turn out to be because of the fumble, but getting to the 50-yard line, Jordan Love could use that help, a lot.
They had a lot of I need to go back and look at the drive chart. It felt like watching they had a lot more short fields today to work with on offense. I think they had to have all started 25 or better. I think they maybe had one that started within the 25, and it was because of a penalty on the very first play that moved half the distance to the goal.
I think
And
there
I
was
think that
one,
was on the
there was a
first
fair
drive.
catch from Reed that was inside the 20.
I think the
and then
biggest.
there was the penalty. So I'm sorry, that was.
Oh, that was the play?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think the biggest play of the game was Devondre Campbell recovering a fumble. The Packers for weeks now and they've had some other takeaways, but they haven't had a takeaway early in a game, competitive score that changed the field and gave the ball back to their offense on a short field with a chance to score. And they scored their first half touchdown the next possession right after that fumble. I think just getting that monkey off their back was huge.
I'm going to give you both your final 60 seconds, and I may even tee you up with a conversation here. Aaron Jones' phone was playing Born to Run during his media scrum, and he acted like he didn't know the song. He's like, Born something or Run something. I don't even know how this is on my phone. I maintain that song is used enough in ads, commercials, movies, TVs that everybody should know that song at some point. Spoon says no. Is this a whole nother Talking Heads thing? I don't know Talking Heads, but I know the Bruce Springsteen song, Spoon.
Well, I mean, everybody assumes that everybody listens to Bruce Springsteen. I wouldn't assume that.
I don't listen to Bruce Springsteen. It's just the song is
yeah,
there.
But you probably are in places where Bruce Springsteen is played more. Than,
like the Walmart?
yeah, exactly. I don't know. I just think that, you know what? I don't care. I don't think it's that unusual. I really don't.
Is there one song that you think everybody should know?
Happy birthday?
Yes!
I don't know.
Don't
Thank
sing
you.
it. There's a copyright on that song. If you sing it, we have to pay.
All I know is I keep my phone on vibrate all the time because I hate the sound my phone makes. I am a 100% of the time vibrate mode phone guy.
I have one alarm that I use with a song.
Well, it wasn't even an alarm. It was his iTunes was playing. I think everyone should know the
Since
Celine
iTunes was playing?
Yeah.
How did that just start all of a sudden?
I don't know. I don't understand the inner workings of the Apple iPhone. I think everybody should know Celine Dion. It's all coming back to me now. One of the greatest songs ever written. We will have full wrap-up coverage for you of Packers versus Rams on PackersNews.com. So make sure you check that out there. And then we will get you ready this week for Packers versus Steelers. Going to be an interesting one in the Steel City, especially against a Mike Tomlin team. We will see you there. Until then, this has been the Green 19 podcast from JS Online and PackersNews.com.